Guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr, previewing Kentucky's trip to Texas on Saturday. Another prime time game here for the Cats and Longhorns, I guess you could say. So that one's going to tip off at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on ESPN at the Moody Center. And Max, we kind of talk about two teams that may be heading in different directions as it stands right now. Kentucky coming off the back-to-back wins against South Carolina and Tennessee after that rough stretch there where they'd lost 4 or 5. Played really well, as we know, against the Vols to get the sweep of Tennessee this season. Meanwhile, Texas has found itself in the danger zone, as we say. They have lost 4 or 5, 3 straight, and now just trying to accumulate some wins to get on the right side of the NCAA tournament bubble right now. They're probably just right there on that line. So one way to do it would be to beat Kentucky at home, Max.
Yeah, the Longhorns trying to avoid dropping 4 in a row for the first time since 2020. Been 5 years since the Longhorns hit a skid like this. Two teams kind of going in opposite directions, even though, Kentucky's got the Jackson Robinson injury. That's a major talking point. They've turned the defense around in a massive way, up to 80th in Ken Blake. This is over a 30 rank jump just in a matter of about 2 weeks. Kentucky just has completely bought in. The freshmen are stepping up. Amari Williams, by the way, check this stat out. I was just diving into some player stats last night, trying to kind of like get a feel for what the leaders were in certain stat groups last year and then compare them to this year, see kind of how they're matching up. Last year, the SEC's leader in defensive rebounding percentage was Janai Broome, 23.9%. That was the best in the SEC last year. Amari Williams right now is at 32%. 9% higher than the SEC's best last year. Do you want to know who number 2 is in the SEC? It's Devin McLaughlin at 22%. Amari Williams is light years ahead in the defensive rebounding department than the best of the best in the SEC the past 2 years. That's how good he's been cleaning up the defensive glass.
So you're saying this could be another Amari Williams game. Should I just stay on that trend? For every game the rest of the way, it's going to be an Amari Williams game. But no, that's obviously, like you said, a wild stat. But he has been, like we mentioned, sort of crucial to this team's success, especially when they get in certain games. And I think when you look at this from a Texas perspective, we mentioned Texas has kind of just been hard to figure out at times. Where just when you think you're kind of buying in, like we said, they had that 3 or 4 stretch where they had home wins against Missouri, A&M. They just completely throttled LSU on the road. Should have beaten Ole Miss on the road. But then they've come back since then and just not played well. And I think that's where, you're looking at this from Kentucky's standpoint, and you're still saying, all right, well, they've got Trey Johnson who can take over a game at any time, right? We know that. And we talked about kind of the up and down nature of what your expectations are for the front court. We mentioned with Kaluma, who, what's the, he only played 11 minutes against Alabama, Max. What do we talk about with the, that's right. That's not ideal because we mentioned some of the big performances he's had this season. I mean, certainly go back to the one against Auburn where he scored 34, gave them a chance to win that game. And then we talked about Shedrick and just kind of what they need out of him, I think, to be successful in these kind of games. I don't think it's no surprise that kind of their most dominant SEC performance this year was him probably having one of his best games of the season at LSU. Had a double-double in that one. We've mentioned kind of, Tremont Mark missed a game, but came back the last time around. Didn't have his best game against Alabama. So it's just been I think that consistency, just like with Kentucky, you've not really maybe had that lineup consistency you feel like overall with Texas, and maybe that's affected the rhythm a little bit. But yeah, that's why I think they're one of the more unpredictable teams in terms of how they actually play right now, just because they've had kind of that mixture of, okay, guys have been in and out and all that. And again, we talked about how Kentucky's adjusted, but I don't have that same confidence in necessarily knowing how Texas is going to play on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah, and we continue to miss out on Kendall Weaver also. One of my favorite players when we're in the offseason looking at Oklahoma and Texas coming into the league. Kendall Weaver was probably one of my favorite players coming in. one of the better defensive rebounders on this Texas team. So now without him and without Kaluma, things really start to get thin inside. I know Weaver's categorized as a guard, but they don't use him like that. They use him inside. So that's a big blow for the interior there for the Longhorns. But Blake, like I say, this is tough 2 Texas, okay? That's what they're going to do. They're going to take their tough 2s. They might make them. They may not. But if they are making them, there's really nothing you can do about it. You can have a hand right in Trey Johnson's face. If he gets to the spot, he's feeling it, and he rises for that mid-range jumper, and he's feeling it. It's going in. And I can feel it already. Kentucky fans, Big Blue Nation coming into our post-game reaction. Why do they always have to go off against us? Why do they always have to have the big game against us? Well, Big Blue Nation, Trey Johnson, even Jordan Pope, Texas has kind of got these individual guys that can go off and just go do their own thing and change the game by themselves. Texas has got that. Just a little bit thinner now down low.
I guess here's another question. Has Kentucky fixed their defensive issues, or is it a product of being a good matchup against Tennessee and playing a bad South Carolina offense? I think that's worth, asking the question. Now, I think Butler coming back, and we've talked about this in the reaction, that's been a boost. Like, I think having him, they're just a better team defensively when he's on the court. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. But, again, it is kind of coming off of 2 games against a South Carolina team, as we said, just really struggles to score. Tennessee it's just been a good matchup for Kentucky. We've said sometimes the game's simple. It's just matchup based, and Tennessee's had their offensive issues. With Texas, they do have a dynamic of having that player, right? Like a Trey Johnson. And we mentioned, like, there have been takeover games for some of these other guys, as you just said. And so I think that's certainly, and we're always going to circle that with Kentucky, is just you want to see from the jump that sort of defensive focus, just like we saw. I mean, really, I think about it, like the most glaring one for me is that what we saw in that first road game at Tennessee, where they just came out, they were all over, embracing the physicality, all those things. I want to see that from the jump here. I think if you're looking at it from Kentucky's standpoint, I feel like they have the best path to victory because, like you mentioned, this is a Texas team that has struggled. They're 15-10, 4-8, but offensively, there's still a lot that I think you can like about this team, especially if you give them opportunities to make open shots. And, it's like if you're comparing like Texas and Texas A&M, right? You think about just how different their offensive profiles are. Yet one team is battling for, a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. One team is battling to make the NCAA tournament. So it's not all about that. But in a matchup like this, I think that can be important when you look at Texas's offensive numbers here. Like you said, if we're coming in after the game, well, that guy just went off on us, right? Who's it going to be? So
you said it could be an Amari Williams game. I think it can just be an interior game all the way for
period. Yeah.
For Kentucky. Without Kaluma, now Jason Kent steps into that 4 role. He's really like I don't know the right comparison. He's a sticky in the corner, make your threes type of offensive 4, not really kind of the physical 230 that Kaluma is. So I can see already in the future a few of those Amari Williams lower the shoulder, just back him down type of plays. I feel like most games Kentucky doesn't have the physicality edge, but without Weaver, without Kaluma, probably the 2 roughest guys for Texas, down low they might have it.
And maybe, Max, maybe there's this theory too. Maybe Ansley Almanor is like, you know what? I'm playing UT again. They're also a shade of orange. So Tennessee, Texas, maybe it's just the same team, right? So maybe we can get that going. Like maybe the theory expands beyond Ansley Almanor loves playing Tennessee. Maybe he loves playing just orange teams that are named UT, right? So
it's
maybe
like
we
the
can
bull
expand
with the red towel. Just
right.
get UT with orange in front of Ansley Almanor and have him shoot.
Wouldn't that again? He's going to score 20 here, isn't he? And he's going to come out and be like, "Hey, that's just what I do." So, all right, let's make our picks here for this one.
So this is one that worries me off the jump because I feel very, very, very confident in Kentucky, and the KenPom projection is a 1-point game.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is going to be very close. Maybe if there's some news that Kaluma's questionable and then he gets announced out, maybe it jumps a little bit in the Cats' favor. But it's not like this is gonna be out there at -5, -6, like I feel like it is. So I'm a little bit nervous, but I just looking at the matchup, the way the teams are trending, the way the defense is turned around, the front court stuff I just talked about, feel pretty confident here in the Cats.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, I think if you look at Texas at home overall, we've mentioned they have played better. They had the 5-point loss to Auburn, 4-point loss to Tennessee, wins against Missouri A&M, lost at 8 at home to Arkansas, which, Kentucky we even say. I mean, both teams have kind of been in that scenario in that stretch, so I don't necessarily think that's a bad loss. But then you kind of had the Alabama game, right, where Alabama just goes off and just takes control of the game. I don't know that I'm expecting the same thing here from Kentucky in a 103-80 type win, but we always do get nervous about these very, very short spreads for teams on the road because Texas has been a good team at home. If you look at Kentucky on the road, as we said, at times they've been a little bit to be desired, whether it's the Georgia game, the Vanderbilt game, the Ole Miss game. But we mentioned they also have wins away from home against Duke, against Gonzaga, against Mississippi State, against Tennessee. And so which one are you getting here? I, too, am going to pick Kentucky. I just think they're, right now, as we said, trending in the better direction. But maybe we should also not underestimate the idea that this is a backs against the wall type game for Texas. And they're thinking if we just win this game, we're back, on the right side of the bubble and feeling pretty good about ourselves with that kind of win against Kentucky. And so motivation level here too. Cats got to be ready. I'm going to pick Kentucky, but yeah, I think this will be a good game between these two teams. So,
Blake, when you look at Texas's remaining schedule after Kentucky, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Georgia, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. I don't get anyone at the top.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is gonna be tough.
Get one here. We'll see
Yeah.
if you're feeling better about yourselves. If you're the Longhorns, we'll find out. But speaking of tournaments, as we say, you can take your college hoops experience to the next level once we get to March with our friends at Bracket Bids. We keep talking about them here. Remember, go join that free pick'em contest, or you can start an auction draft league to play with friends, family, or coworkers. Everyone starts with the same bidding dollars. Up to you to outwit and outbid your league mates to secure the teams you think will go the distance. Choose from multiple scoring models, including the upset bonuses to reward those bold picks. You can track your teams with live in-game scoring and watch the standings shift in real time. The further your teams advance, the higher you climb in the standings. That's how it works. For league play, use that promo code SC16, SC16 for 40% off. Download the Bracket Bids app today or visit them at bracketbids.com. More predictions here on the channel for Saturday's matchups. Be sure to check them out. And as we said, baseball season starting as well. Lots of coverage coming on that. We appreciate you guys watching as always, and we'll talk to you soon at Southeastern 16.